CorporateMOM decodes statistics ecosystem, establishing a dynamic GDP GNH database systems. Hello friends, we are in another good session on CorporateMOM decodes stats ecosystem. It is full of figures, and let us see how it is going to make ourselves comfortable. Enabling I 4.0 by merit, measure, record, implement, track societal changes. Statistics have been giving the impression there is nothing but numbers. Naturally, it is only for the economic development, about the corporate, about the government statistics, and more on that. Whereas societal changes, which had been coming through, has been given or neglected to a great extent in terms of statistical analysis of data, which is important, and that gives data stability to the information that we are looking for of 17 SDGs. I'm going to discuss all these things in the background of what Bibek Debroy and others from the economic wing of PMO India have come out with.
Copyright CorporateMOM Corporate Management Orbiter Mission.
In response to Ministry of Statistics and program implementation, critics from inside and outside, Bibek Debroy states, supporters and critics agree on the urgent need for reform in India's statistical system. It is time for the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation MOSPI to address concerns with the statistical system seriously. So we shall. That's what he says. To quote from my recent article, CorporateMOM, Shamika Ravi writes, statisticians can be wrong. I state, the Economic Survey of India, presented a couple of days before the annual budget, find the current data from various states as N bar A. Possibly it meant not available, but I termed it as not acceptable. Bibek's article quotes from Pramit Bhattacharya's India's Statistical System, Past, Present and Future. Bibek's article quotes from Pramit Bhattacharya's article. Number one, the paper highlights contentious historical debates on data collection. For example, Godgill argued against a new statistical organization, favoring individual ministries with domain knowledge to collect data. Mahalanobis, however, emphasized unbiased data via independent agencies. IMO, Godgill was right. Mahalanobis was wrong. One of your figures. If one is looking for a third party assurance from outside agencies, you already crossed the 5 trillion mark, but you are waiting for someone to tell you. Make your figures dynamic. Then, the second one Bibek was mentioning about, there is also a disconnect between statistical research and official statistics after the National Sample Survey NSS moved out of the Indian Statistical Institute ASI. IMO, in my opinion. Indian Statistical Institute is an educational institution. They can adopt a new scenario and make effective changes among the undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral degree students. Education institutions, universities, corporate, and government interaction must be restored. Now, the third one, Bibek says, Bhattacharya's paper raises questions on human resources, survey design, and reporting in the Indian Statistical Service. Within the present ISS, there is little expertise in survey design, and most of the time is spent authoring unimaginative reports. That's why the processing of census, not just population census, and survey results is delayed. That's why questions are ham-handed, quote number 3, inconsistent and non-compatible over the time. Every survey through a working group starts afresh, ignoring what was asked earlier for that particular survey and other surveys too. In my opinion, no need for surveys and sampling. GDP shall be calculated on real time. So it will be 100% data collection, 100% data quality, scrap analysis. Bibek's article quotes Pramit, number 4. On the other hand, that statistical crisis presents an opportunity for inexpensive reforms that can sharpen India's competitive edge in the global economy. A new reforms commission can outline a roadmap for reforms and reassure all stakeholders about the government's seriousness in fixing a major governance deficit. It wasn't merely inertia and protecting one's turf. To quote from the paper again, Sen's successor Pranab Sen, TCA Anand, stalled the Menon Committee proposals since they would have constrained the powers of a chief statistician. In my opinion, HACCP of Statistical crisis, fixing a major governance deficit is a critical control point. Bibek's article number 5 is a good idea to set up a new reforms commission. Quote number 6. To set up a roadmap, especially because India will be a member of the UN Statistical Commission from 2024. In this context, I shall address the issue raised by Shamika Ravi. Bibek's article closes with that number 5. Number 1 from Shamika Ravi, data quality is a serious concern which needs a dedicated and continued effort for its improvement. My opinion, unlike stats published by FAO or IMF, is traced to a farmer or a single individual performance from any single company. That is the data quality. HACCP of Stats Ego-System, number 1. The roadmap should look into alternative means of data collection towards state and national GDP accumulator. Number 2. Our statistical systems is from Shamika Ravi will only make progress if we honestly recognize the problem at hand. Data systems are not designed to make governments look good or bad. They are meant to provide an objective picture of the ground realities across the country to anybody interested, policymakers, scholars, and citizens alike, like me. IMO, from my notebook. Quote, let me quote observation of Mr. D. Subbarao, Governor of Reserve Bank of India, the then RBI governor. The RBI's policy formulation is handicapped by frequent revisions to data. We make policies in real time, and if the provisional data that these are based on are inaccurate, the resultant policies can turn out to be suboptimal choices. Take estimates of GDP growth. For the year 2009-10, the advanced estimate of GDP growth at market prices from the expenditure side that came out in February 2010 was 6.8%. That was changed to 7.7% in the revised estimate in May 2010 and further to 9.1% in the quick estimate in February 2011. The policy that purposed had to use information on advanced estimate of GDP was fraught with the risk of underestimating the growth momentum, Subbarao said. When was the error in GDP growth rate of 2009 and 10 found out? It was on July 6, 2011. Come April 2012, under the banner IIP numbers, lies, damn lies, and Government of India statistics, believe it or not, industrial growth in January 2012 was only 1.1%, not 6.8%, as reported earlier. Why? Because of incorrect reporting by the Directorate of Sugar in the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, says the government. Sugar production in January was apparently reported at 134.08 lakh tons instead of 58.09 lakh tons. This, together with minor updation of data received from other sources, has resulted in the growth rate being adjusted downward by an incredible 84%. If that explanation rings false, it is because macroeconomic data in India has lost all credibility. Unquote. Now, HACCP Stats Ego-System number 2. Number 1, we make policies in real time is an important aspect of it, not this delayed information system. Number 2, RBI's policies formulation is handicapped by frequent revisions to data. So the data stability is very important. Now, coming to the third point of what Shamika Ravi said, the sampling methodology of our surveys requires urgent upgradation to keep up with the needs of India's dynamic economy. Sampling for a 5 trillion economy, is my opinion, IMO, is unacceptable. It will just be like the sampling surveys that place India as a democracy in 120 position just about Pakistan, or human rights just about Afghanistan, or happiness index way down the list. HACCP CCP of Stats Ego-System number 3. The sampling methodology of our surveys need alternate options. Number 2. Governance is a dynamic function. Facilitate policies in real time. The issues raised by Shamika Ravi number 4. Statisticians aren't stupid, but they need to be open-minded to improvement and innovation, else they can be very wrong. IMO, the fundamental flaw I say reflects, in brackets, Godgill argued that a poor country such as India should not invest in a new statistical organization. Instead, the resources earmarked for NSS should strengthen administrative data systems and upgrade the state statistical bureaus. He supported Sukhatme's contention that statistics should be collected by individual ministries and departments that have domain knowledge, not by an outside agency. Mahalanobis argued that an independent survey agency was essential to collect unbiased data, since departmental administrations have a strong incentive to misreport figures. HACCP Stats Ego-System. Number 1. Misreporting the figures happens when there is no data stability. Number 2. Ministries have no standards to set targets or reach them methodically. Number 3. Mahalanobis Stats Ego-System had prevailed too long, and the damage it has done to planning is immeasurable. Let me briefly give my proposal as how the difficult situation that we are in can be removed. I've indicated in every step HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control points. I think this covers a broad range of problem areas by which the statistical information system which had been collated and being brought into notice and being utilized. The most important part is utilization of the statistics. which everybody agrees is quite delayed. So I shall give how corporate mom has brought about an answer, a solution for every one of these things, and that I shall indicate from the word go by looking at the HACCP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 5. HACCP Stats Ego-System. Ego-system is a one run by individuals. Ecosystem is one run by nature. Ecosystem is perfect to the core. Is quite amazing. I have already discussed that, and I will give you the this thing. But the ecosystem is what we plan to do. The ecosystem that we are planning and how we have to go about it is first only two process in any organization, including the government: creative process and action process. In the creative process, the government is a maximum between the creative process of various organizations in the government and the corporate is the government that's the lead indicator. They provide with the ecosystem that could be of suitable for the corporate. Corporate depends upon the government as such, because the intellectual value capital, that is the creative process that we create, and then we are in a position to provide a policy statement to say the corporate, for corporate to follow in the action value capital. We have failed in this as far as statistical ecosystem is concerned in a very bad manner. So there is a urgent need for reform in India's statistical system. So I will address this issue. Number one is that fixing a major governance deficit is a critical control point. That says it all. Nothing more to be added than that. If there's no governance available, there's no point in going beyond that. So the governance deficit is due to not addressing the various issues. The issues concern is not just economic. What I have done, I will show to you in collating all the 17 SDGs and how the 944, 9 social, 4 economic, and 4 environmental areas, or what I call it as a project seed, development goals. In that, I am giving importance to the goal number 5, gender equality. There's a reason for it, which I will. But what we are trying to do is that what I am trying to do, convey to you, is that the most important is the all the 17 SDGs. Within the 17 SDGs, goal number 5, gender equality, is the most important, because if we succeed in that, we are succeeding every 17 SDGs. So the canopy under which the entire 944 social, environmental, and economic development goals are all come under single canopy, and nothing should go beyond it. So the architecture is being created to provide for what is needed for the 17 SDGs. That's number one. The roadmap that we are looking into, alternative means of data collection, is a data creation rather. In the creative process is the intellectual value capital. The intellectual value capital has to go, it has nothing to do with the Malanabis say something, it is being accepted by the government. There is a long process of how from the dream state to wake up state to the 6 stages of development, where we are creating either an IPR or the policy statement or strategy plan. That is what we are looking into to reform the statistical system. The end product is a fully organized and analyzed statistical system that can be followed by anybody, particularly the corporate sector and as well as the government. So I'm looking into that on a case study basis, which I have already done on blueprint for a GSDP, gross state domestic product, $1.5 trillion for Gujarat state. In that, GSDP is GDP plus GNH. So I shall explain how it is being done. That is both. When we talk of 17 SDGs, only 4 are economic development. The balance of 13 are all environmental and other areas which are qualitative. So economic development, we have given too much of importance since the first industrial revolution, and we have not reached anything in that. 1 is to 99%, 1% holds everything, 99% just look at askance about these guys and can do nothing about it. That is society. The society needs the GNH. The calculation and the figures that have to come out of this roadmap is that GNH area. So when we combine this GDP and the GNH, we have a lot to talk about it, which had been done by CorporateMOM. CorporateMOM is Corporate Management Orbiter Mission. It orbits, in which I shall explain this thing also, is sort of just like as it is in the universe, proton, neutrons and electrons. Protons and neutrons form a nucleus. Here in our society, we keep the society is the neutron and the proton is the companies, or within the company is the board. That is what is, they form a corporate nucleus. Then the guys who are running it, the executive authorities or the CEOs. The CEOs spin around the nucleus, corporate nucleus. The one which I have introduced in this is another, which is the electron. Another electron has been introduced in this spinning wheel is a CorporateMOM, which is taking into account two big functions. Only one function we are taking into account, that is quantitative. As I said, the environmental part of it or the social part of it, we are not touching at all. It's only the economic part of it we are touching. So this is the same case when you come down to the individual companies. We look into the quantitative elements. Qualitative elements, we are not doing anything about it. And there are 188 out of 200 belong to the qualitative elements. Only 12 are quantitative. With the result, there is nobody to take care of the qualitative elements, which is like a code of conduct or insider trading or conflict of interest, conflict of personal interest, conflict of conscience. All these things have to be measured, for which the right attitude, the right persons are the women. The women empowerment are entrusted with these quality elements of management, which is going to bring about a eternal change in the value system of a company, which is on an individual basis. When I said about 17 SDGs, those 17 SDGs in the macro level we are looking at, and when you're coming to the micro level, to a single company, we are bringing the SOS governance, subject, object, self-governance. That is where we pick up the FEC, that is the fiscal, ethical, co-responsibility factors, and provide the company with a CREAM strategy. So corporate governance, risk management, earnings, accounting quality and management quality. That's what CREAM stands for. And that is how the ecosystem of the statistics should match with the demands of the ecosystem. The ecosystem demands that we are perfect in nature, with nature, and align that with the ecosystem. And that is lacking. That's what the ecosystem number 1 says, fixing a major governance deficit. That has to be closed. That is what roadmap has to look into. And number 3, ecosystem number 3, HACCP, we make policies in real time. RBI's policy formulation is handicapped by frequent revisions to data. Absolutely correct. It is also good for everybody. And this is what CorporateMOM looks into, and how scientifically we can bring that into the fore. And that is by CAGR to CDGR. I'm an accountant. I know how to prepare a balance sheet. But balance sheet is ex post facto. My IPR is IBCM, inactivity based cost management. Activity as a cost incidence, that is where we prepare a P&L and balance sheet. Inactivity has got a cost consequence. The cost of inaction is never measured. That is what Corporate Mom does in terms of putting that is like a playing an ODI. Those who know cricket knows pretty well ODI. Send a target and get the figures on a daily basis. That is, there you do it on a ODI on a daily basis. Here is 5 years is 2030. You fix the target and bring the target as on today we are covering. Corporate Mom will be in a position to help that out. When we are doing it, when you look at the GSDP, everything is being analyzed. $1.5 trillion for Gujarat GSDP. You have every strata of accumulator, GDP accumulator, are being brought into focus. When it is being done, is including that of agriculture. Agriculture is enormous. If you look at the all India basis, I am giving the example of how to do it on a $1 trillion as against what we have for $50 billion, and how to approach that. The question of what we are trying to tell ex post facto, it has happened before. So what has happened? We look into the variance analysis and fight with each other. The VP of buying, the VP of marketing, VP of production, each person tries to tell the other guy is wrong and they are right, and that should not happen. That is where Corporate Mom provides you with a basic structural approach for reaching out the target. When you say the reaching out the target, you're looking at the daily rate of growth of every area. Then you have the changes, or quite a change comes to what we are accustomed to. We don't look into the variance analysis today or what happened yesterday. You're looking into what would happen in 2030 is very important. Like India has gone in for 2060, 2070, or 2050 for various factors with regard to the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 compliance for CO2 emission and all that. You keep that target and work from today. And if these the various factors are there, if you are going to achieve, if you have not achieved, you can sleep around, nothing will happen in 2050. So this is where we have to look into the very organized method of creating that strategy plan. Strategy plan for 2050 is different. Strategy plan for corporate is 2030 is different. Strategy plan for 2025 for the government entity for each and every ministry. So the ministry gets the target, like from MSMEs. Say currently is about 28% of the GDP. Calculate is roughly about 560 billion or that sort of thing. Now, if you are much more, if you're going for 1.6 trillion dollar of MSMEs, a lot has to be done. Lot many things. So we are covering in this JSDP alone 1.6 trillion for MSMEs for the all India basis, 110 million MSMEs are there, 550 million farmers are there. And we are looking into the agriculture, we are looking into the MSMEs, we are looking into the each and every sector within a particular GSDP, which is common for every state. So when the ministry looks into it, whether it's railways or food or agriculture or any other this thing, it's on a all India basis, but cumulative coming from each and every stage. As on today, very many states say is a 2-3 years old of statistics, and which has no relevance as such. So we make policies in real time. You got to get these figures on a real time, which is possible when your CAGR is being converted into CDGR, your daily growth rate. CAGR for 2030 is different, or 2050 is different. When we are doing that, whether that is accomplished today is bringing the real time. And if you look at that 13 million farmers, you please go through. I am giving that one also, a couple of pages excerpts from my analytics. How the 13 million farmers their production, their produce, are being brought into on a daily basis. This is very important, not like what we have already seen here in some food ministries giving some sort of information, and based on which a lot of statistics being created, which is becomes irrelevant after some time. That should not happen. So that is the one which is you're going to get. I'll give you, and I leave it to you to make a decision on that. The sampling methodology of our surveys need alternate options. Yes, that is the option which I am giving. Governance as a dynamic function, facilitate policies in real time. So the governance part of it is the most important thing. And we have SOS governance, subject, object, self-governance. We are talking about matter which is inert. Everything is an inert object that we are talking about. We are doing only the object governance. We are doing that object governance, this thing, why this particular is not happen, why there is a low sales or market or expenses. These are all connected with the individuals. So it is not the object governance, actually the subject who makes the object move. So that object governance is also a subject governance, and you have the self governance when it comes to the animal spirits. You have a trick of entanglement, you have economic, moral, and hedonistic. These things, these hedonistic, spoil the entire economic activities. That's why the women empowerment is very important. They are untainted, they have a superb, what Prime Minister Modi had said as a Nari Shakti. Entrust them with a value system within a company, the lowest. So the highest we have 17 SDGs macro level, and the lowest sector for each and every company should prepare the FAC report, the fiscal, ethical, and co-responsibility FAC report. So that will take care of the dynamic function on a daily basis. Then we have final one which I said, misreporting the figures happens when there is no data stability. You have the data stability today. At any point of time, put the fingers, you are there where you stand as on today. Is all DT by DT, is a task in the course of time. This particular task ought to have been finished. So it has been structured very well. Men equity and women equity, and being done in a good manner. You'll see that framework. That framework applies to each and every company from where we are able to collect the data. Ministries have no standards to set targets and reach them methodically. If you have got a $5 trillion target, which year? 25, 26, distribute to each and every ministry, and they in turn make the control to each and every sector within their own ministry, and you have amazing target and CDGR, daily growth rate. It will be a very enchanting work to look at. I have given the example of 670,000 people working for Volkswagen. When you do that, we are talking about 50 million farmers. We are talking about 110 million MSMEs. You create a dynamic governance database. Every day you should be in a position to pick up the GDP calculator and GNH index calculator every day. CorporateMOM is in a position to help you out on that. Malambe Stats Ego-System has prevailed too long, and the damage it has done to planning is immeasurable. Amazing. We are stuck with so many things, but I think it takes the cake. Ego-System of statistics. Just throw it out. So I'll give you some more of this thing. 17 SDGs, how it is being 944, 9 social, 9 environmental, and 9 economic development schemes, how it has to be done, and why goal number 5 is important. Then I'll give about how the GSDP figures come in, what are the areas, industry group who are involved with that. Number three, I will give about how the same could be applied for agriculture. I call it as fiscal, that is farmer industry integration with agriculture. Part of it is taken as a lead for everything for project fiscal, and that is about agriculture. I also give about the MSMEs as a part of it, which I had given to the MSME when they came for what is to be done with the new formation or new thing. I don't know what happened to the MSME ministry, what they have done. I also, as a common citizen, had sent that note. Part of it I will give. Collectively, you have a phenomenal way of bringing out the information system with a dynamic database system. They are infinite. It's very important to know. GDP, we are talking about the supply chain management is infinite, but the number of people is finite. That is the most important thing. If I am one and you are two, and two together we are doing certain things, you can do quite a number of work. So the denominator is not return on investment, but return on the intangible. So you have action or inaction in the numerator, and the intangible, which is a effort that anybody puts in, is one, is a common one. So you have binary value of action or inaction. So corporate mom provides you with each and every task being assigned to 5 different people, each work independently, even though they are joined together and yoked together to finish them, because there are different types. So you can't do any task alone. It has to be done by several people. So if you are in a position to do that and scrap the statistics which is being done at the point of time today, and let's go further. Thank you. I'm giving 2 pages, 2 slides on cream technology architecture and on governance, fiscal and ethical co-responsibility framework. Cream technology architecture. CREAM is an acronym for corporate governance, risk management, earnings, content quality, and management quality. The 17 SDGs are trifurcated to 3 pillars of 9 social, 4 environmental, and 4 economic development goals. Goal number 5, gender equality, is part of the 9 social pillar. Will remain the main pillar for the entire 17 SDGs. Mark my word. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is explained vis-a-vis the 4 main techniques used by different organizations. Women's Empowerment Principles, WEP, Gender Equality Index, GEI, Gender Equity Model, GEM, Sustainable Stock Exchanges, SSE. What are they? How do they gel with goal number 5, gender equality? Based on which corporate sustainability report is prepared, wherein Operation Women Equity is the principal mover. The entire 17 SDGs depend on the success of OWE, Operation Women Equity. CREAM technology measures, records, tracks the main beneficiary of the 17 SDGs, women, every one of them, by women equity. We have discussed on Volkswagen, on fiscal and ethical responsibility. I am creating a framework, what we had so far discussed, which is fiscal and ethical co-responsibility framework, a track of entanglement. Please have a look at this framework. Volkswagen is one good case study. Our main theme in my work is construct values and deconstruct valueless. And this is the one we have to appreciate Volkswagen. One thing is almost every company has got unwanted things sitting around. And it could be a very major drawback, almost all the companies. But what Volkswagen has done is how to come out of it. And in that, Volkswagen is going to show to the world of management what they are doing is extremely good, and which almost all companies in the world have to. So the construct value is what they are redoing it right from the after the fiasco, and that is where this framework is brought into picture. Ethical come core responsibility. The most important thing why we are taking this Volkswagen as a case study is on gender equality. If you look at the chart, one is object, another is subject, which we have told SOS governance, subject, object, self governance, which we have discussed. If you look at that two areas, one is the teamwork. Teamwork is there are 5 members in a team, 4 from fiscal responsibility and 1 from ethical co-responsibility. In that fiscal responsibility, both are involved, men and women. So you create a men and women equity, we will be able to find out. And if you look at the ethical co-responsibility, we are going to discuss that right now on women empowerment, and which is going to be taken care by the women folds on ethical co-responsibility, which you derive women equity. So you have men plus women equity in one side, fiscal responsibility, and women equity in the other side. Collectively, you are able to get the gender equality. And 134K teams into 5, 670K workforce are taken into account. So it becomes a very important aspect of the framework and how we are going to deal with it. And that is what I would like to present you here. I would like you to have a good look at that framework, and we will expand. Here I am giving the excerpts from 7 slides. Corporate mom, effort per person, APP, GDP, GNH multiplier. Number 2, preamble. In this podcast episode number 28, I am presenting corporate mom, effort per person, and EPP, GDP, GNH multiplier with a case study on GSDP, $1.5 trillion US dollar 2024. Gujarat's gross state domestic product, GSDP, I call it from now on as the blueprint, prepared in January 2020, a review on what we proposed and how we disposed of. You can download the full analytics from my ibcm.in webpage. I prepared the blueprint for GSDP 1.5 trillion US dollars in 2024 at the request of FIA, Federation of Industries and Associations, Ahmedabad, Gujarat. The blueprint analysis took into account the actuals from 2012-2018 and quick estimates from 2018 and 19 as prepared by the state government of Gujarat. Projected figures for 1.5 trillion US dollar in 2024. Please see the following in 3 parts. The blueprint for 1.5 trillion US dollar expected a CAGR of 41.38% for a consistent period of 5 years. This is part of the blueprint for GSDP $1.5 trillion in 2024, part 1. If you look at that industry group, it's a very interesting one. The first one is agriculture, forestry, and fishing. It includes crops, livestock, forestry, and logging, fishing, and aquaculture. Number 2, mining and quarrying. A subtotal primary is being arrived at. I will take into account the first one separately in GSDP, where emphasis would be on manufacturing things which follows: manufacturing, electricity, gas, water, and other utility services. And 5, construction, a subtotal of secondary industry group is being given. Agriculture is very important. I will be coming out separately on that. Quite a number of farmers in Gujarat alone is about 13 million, and you have total of India's more than about 550 million farmers. Agriculture is number one. They are lagging behind China in terms of total. Agriculture is about $450 billion for India. It has to reach $1 trillion to keep pace with China. It's very important that agriculture I will come out with separately. Here we are looking at that EPP, GDP, and JNH multiplier. How do we do that in manufacturing and other areas? This is what part 1. Please have a look at the statistics. Here I am giving the blueprint for GSDP $1.5 trillion in 2024, part 2. It has among the industry group trade, repairs, services, hotels, and restaurants. Number 7, transport, storage, communication, and services related to broadcasting. It has quite a number of railways, important ones. Number 8 is financial services. Number 9 is real estate ownership of dwelling and professional services. Number 10, public administration. All of them are costs as well as growth in terms of GDP accumulator. What we are looking at is not the quantum at this point of time. We are in the fag end of the 5-year analytics of GSDP $1.5 trillion, and we have reached the final year of 2024. So what we are looking at is how corporate mom will be in a position to bring about uniformity and give an impetus for each and every one of the industry groups has been done. It's not that we have a target of $1.5 trillion or any amount X or Y or Z, but it's not that everybody reaches it. There will always be adverse variances. So what we are looking at fundamentally, if there are shortfall, how the shortfall is going to be analyzed, and as well as bring about a solution in terms of attacking the target in a more matured manner. That's what corporate mom stands. The blueprint for GSDP $1.5 trillion in 2024, part 3. Part 3 is a total of all the subtotals. You have gross state value added at basic prices, which is plus product taxes minus product subsidies. You arrive at a total figure of in terms of gross. And what had been worked out for 2023-24, if you look like it, is about 1499.96 billions. That's about $1.5 trillion. When we calculate in terms of gross and we connect that with 70 rupees per dollar, today is about 80 or 85 rupees per dollar. So you strive to make more and more GDP accumulator, but the exchange value can bring about a complete change in terms of revising it to 1499 at 85 could be 10 to 15% lower. So if you look at it, is about 1.5 trillion dollar, but in terms of 70 rupees per dollar. This has to be taken into account, and when we try to bring about at 85, you have to recast your this thing, or make your rupee, the crores, more, not in terms of bringing it less. Let us keep that 1.5 trillion dollar as 1.5 trillion dollar, in order that we have to have it arrive at that figure. Let us try take the shape of as many crores that are needed. If it is 70 to 80, is 85 is about 10 or 15%. So if you have x crores, you have 1.15 x crores have to be created. So this is what it is, and have a look, and let us find it out how it is being done. We shall go to the next one. Number 3, GSDP picture in February 2023. Gujarat's gross state domestic product, GSDP, is estimated at rupees 22 lakhs crores, US dollar 288.73 billion in FY23, an increase of 13.3% year over year. And I've given the where I culled the information from. 3.1, in the blueprint for GSDP 1.5 trillion in 2024, we are estimated to arrive at a figure of 1.06 trillion dollar by FY23, with a CAGR of 41.38%. What we have now is US dollar 288.73 billion for FY23. If we had to reach FY24 figure of GSDP 1.5 trillion dollar, CAGR would work out to 419% in a single year. Next in analytics, point number 5, GDP GNH simultaneously integrate 1.5 trillion dollar to GNH as set 5 criteria. Number 1, health. Number 2, education. Number 3, work. Number 4, personal happiness. And number 5, cities. CorporateMOM by merit, that is measure, record, implement and track the progress by return on intangible. In the same manner as CorporateMOM has already published the case study on Volkswagen, let every company prepare the targets set and tracked by merit. Let me summarize. The most important thing which I'm trying to give is on GNH, Gross National Happiness Index, which was never integrated with GDP. And GDP again is completely a delayed document. Nobody bothered about it. When it comes out, data that you get in IMF or World Bank or OECD, all of them are greatly delayed as national budget for India. Now, let me quote from a UN document which was prepared by one Louis Coyantes. It was in 2012. It was a draft actually. Happiness toward a holistic approach to development. Coyantes states, to quote, moreover, most conclusions of happiness surveys are usually based on information from weird countries, where in the sense Western, educated, industrialized, rich democracies, limiting their credibility. That was in 2012. It holds good even today. We go by certain surveys of happiness index, and is not relevant in my opinion. The International Fund for Agriculture Development, IFAD, this is what Louis Coyantes had mentioned, endorsed the Bhutan Initiative and underlined the importance of happiness as a social and political objective, requiring social, political, and economic measures for its realization. IFAD emphasized that the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals was a precondition to the effective pursuit of happiness by the global population, including overcoming poverty and food insecurity within a framework of sustainable development and effective responses to climate change. Unquote. Now, this observation is important from the context of integrating development goals, all 17 SDGs of them connecting to the JNH index. This UN article was written in 2012, but development goals, GDP and JNH could never be integrated. One is quantitative, that is GDP, and the other qualitative, that is JNH. Hence, corporate MOM effort per person, APP GDP GNH multiplier, should be taken as a priority. An organization must take it up further, lest we remain steadfast to the earth is as flat as a trencher outlook. Here it is, excerpts from Project Fiscal, Farmer, Industry, Society, Consolidate Agri Leadership. It's an interesting one, you'll like it. About 5 slides.
This is Modi's great work, second great work within the last few months. When COVID-19 affected everyone, providence, it did not affect the produce of the farmers. In fact, they could not get the proper way of sending it to various places, and they destroyed. So lucky, I must say, providence, lucky, whatever you say. 800 million people have been provided with food grains by Narendra Modi for the last several months, and it would continue to be given until November 2020. If the farmers had not produced, India would have been destroyed forever. We are talking 800 million people who have been migrating from one place to the other, who have lost their job and could not do anything else, and the free food grains were distributed. So compare that with this bill, 3 bills which have been promulgated. The farmers were under great stress, and the matter is the one that sits on your head. It doesn't get released. When on this particular day farmer is being freed from the clutches of these middlemen, that unleashing of energy is going to happen, or is already happening, in a phenomenal manner. So corporate, take notice of it. You want corporate citizen. You are so much stressed about the number of industries which are under lockdown condition, whereas the people have been kept within the 4 walls of their own homes. At the most, they do the home brought work. Whereas here, these guys, from what I have indicated in my book called Project Fiscal. Fiscal stands for Farmer, Industry, Society. Consolidating Agri Leadership. This Project Fiscal is going to get the benefit of unleashing the energy from $450 billion to $1 trillion in the year 2024. As I have mentioned in the book, you guys, the corporate investors, can make it happen maybe a year before. You have the capability, because the capability of the farmer has gone amazingly well. They are receptive. In this presentation, I am presenting this FIS, Farmer Industry Society, what it stands for, how it is going to benefit you as an investor, how it is going to increase from $450 billion to $1 trillion as a agriculture industry. Is opportunity, is an event which I had mentioned in my book very specifically, that unleashing the energy of farmers, I want to bring it to the corporate citizen. Because on a comparable note, corporate, as I had mentioned in my earlier talk, is a hierarchical one-man call center. So the energy of corporate is never unleashed. Global agricultural statistics, India continues to be number 2 for too long, is at $400 billion, as against China, $968 billion. The statistics which we normally get is a minimum of 3 to 4 years old. From the state governments to the central government to FAO to World Bank, they are all very outdated. I don't know how any decision could be made with this sort of statistics. So my suggestion is we keep a target, 1 trillion. That's a CAGR. And to CAGR, we go towards that. And the development is not top to bottom. The development of statistics is bottom to the top. So this is the one which we have to clearly understand. In that respect, let me just go through these statistics. Number one, 401 for India, $968 billion for China, Soviet. From 1960 to 1993, they were neck to neck, China and India, in agriculture production. Then China had catapulted. Why India had to lag behind is a surprise. The lands are there, the agriculture production is there, and what made the difference in China will be a lesson to India to, number one, to learn. But if you look at the peanuts production, one of the samples which I have given here, is that it's the same thing. 1960 to 2017, the same 1993 they took off, and we are yet to catch up. But if you look at the yield part of it, China is number 13 in the world globally, and India is 32, and Israel is number 2. So if you are targeting $1 trillion, yield is a very important factor. It could be due to any number of reasons. To reach the $1 trillion, I think it would be very good to have association with Israel and see that the yield percentage goes substantially per hectare. The number of hectares may be the same, I'm not sure, between what it was in 1993 and what it is now. So let us target $1 trillion in that basis and arrive at how to go about it. There is like for Indians who knows cricket very well, is playing an ODI. This is the same thing for the private sector also, the corporate also. You are creating a strategy plan for 5-year plan and go back to dig all that past data and keep on doing the same thing. That is ex post facto, we do the variance analysis. The previous one I did talk about the goal congruence. The goal congruence of agriculture sector for India is $1 trillion, single goal. And how to go about it? Let us find out. FPOs as emerging corporate citizen. An FPO is a farmer producer organization. A farmer is eligible to join an FPO by buying a share of, say, one share of 1,000 rupees. Likewise, about 1,000 farmers join together to join a FPO, totaling about 10 lakhs rupees. The FPC is a farmer producer company. An FPC may have about any number of FPOs under the governance. They may give guidance and give all the help that is needed for the FPO. The FPOs are being created like a joint stock company, a public limited company with a shareholding and share capital. So the recent changes on 28th of September 2020, those three bills which have given a sort of a freedom for all these farmers to be the masters of their own destiny, bring about a total revolution in terms of managing these FPOs and their capability. Now, when we look at $1 trillion as the target for agriculture economy, these FPOs are going to play the major part, not the middlemen. Previously, anything, legislation, everything that comes because of the influence of these middlemen. How good for them. Here, from now on, the game is different. So, Government of India, in the last budget, the Finance Minister announced that there will be at least about 10,000 FPOs, covering about 13 million farmers. There are already about 8,000 FPOs which are being designed to perform on an optimum level. But because of that, as we said, suppression by the middlemen, there have been a lot of problems. Now that those problems are being removed, we could expect substantial changes that will be coming. And the possibility of reaching out to the $1 million target for agriculture economy is quite feasible. Of course, there will be a lot of requirements, as much as MSME, or that I won't call it as MSME, as many of the companies, because these farmers, FPOs, if they are able to produce well with the changes in the pricing system and whatnot, there could be a lot of development and a lot of profitable ventures that would be coming with a support system for, like say, the suppliers of the seeds, suppliers for the AI. AI will make a big dent in their yield and productivity. And I have indicated as such in my book about these things. The book extract I've just now given to you. So let us expect something extraordinary coming, and the suppliers and as well as the customers are more important. We have to pay their dues. There will be a long-term arrangement where the suppliers are being taken care and the customers pay back properly. There is a generation of big revenue with least administrative requirements. So we can expect things to change very positively. Let me give you about a director of Gush Pro, one of the APCs who have about 30 FPOs under them, governing about 40,000 farmers. Mr. Kuldeep Solanki, for you.
I represent Gujpro Agribusiness Consortium Producer Company, which is a federation of farmer producer organizations in Gujarat. Our mission is to advance the business and policy interests of these FPOs, farmer producer organizations. One of the major issues with smallholder farmers is they do not get remunerative prices post-harvest. We observed that most of the farmers after harvest, they have to immediately sell their produce in the market. This could be out of their immediate financial needs, or it could be either lack of or poor storage facilities within their residence or within their village. Hence, we through our network of farmer producer organizations not only try to find remunerative markets for them and establish business linkages, but we also carry out capacity building of such farmer producer organizations in the areas of aggregation, small scale processing, large processing, warehousing, and also marketing. As part of this initiative, we have organized an exposure visit to VNKC Agrochrome Private Limited. I would like to add that we would also be entering into a long-term supply agreement with VNKC Agrochrome for supply of groundnut and peanut kernels. As part of this initiative, we had initiated a pilot project in the year 2016 in which we had processed groundnut after procuring it from farmers. We had processed groundnuts and supplied it to VNKC Agrochrome. And in the current year, we plan to scale it up to around 3,000 metric tons to 5,000 metric tons. We believe that partnerships like such will contribute a lot in enhancing the income of smallholder farmers.
The concept of EPP, effort per person, is going to help the corporate greatly because of the accountability factor had been identified. Forensic audit, there would be no need for it. That is one. Asset management is very simple because it's governed by only 3 laws. The first law we discuss in this particular presentation is that of Prime Minister Modi introducing the 3 bills which help the farmers to get released from the suppression of the middleman. The suppression of the middleman, which weighs very heavily, a matter weighs very heavily on the minds of the people, about 700 million people. That is one type of matter. When the energy being put through this policy matter, which had come from the government of India, that is the one which is helping the energy being as a liberated matter. That is one. Number 2, what we do realize, energy has been already put through. With the result, the Indian agricultural economy is sitting on $450 billion worth of value. It's already in existence. So when you go to the second law, that $450 billion have to be pushed to $1 trillion. The second law says is a matter waiting to happen. The matter waiting to happen is that the $1 trillion is waiting. It has to happen if the energy is being put through. That energy, we have to go to the third law. The third law says matter and antimatter, when collide, give a pure energy. So this is the effort, intangible, antimatter, effort, all are same. So that is purely for a single person. It is not a nuclear bomb that you energize, the whole city is bombarded. It is, in this case, each person has to decide to take action or not to take action. It is his or her privilege. The denominator is intangible, or which is the effort that you are putting through. Common to a potter, common to a nuclear scientist. So the value of that intangible is 1, is a constant. And the numerator, action or inaction, that is 1 or 0. So you have a binary value of action or inaction. So return on intangible is an equation that is being applied for second law. To do what? To move that $450 billion of matter and energize it to liberate the matter from toward $1 trillion. When you do that, 450 billion goes to 500 to 600 to 700 to 800. As and when an optimized level of performance, it is being pushed to law number 1, the first law. Otherwise, it will get stuck here at the second law. So the inactivity should not be there. If we have planned properly, as the book has given the wonderful strategic planning area of 6 stages, and come out with a proper strategy plan, you are in the process of optimizing your effort. About 10,000 FPOs with 13 million farmers to start with as an example, put through the CREAM reports. Corporate governance and risk management and the earnings and accounting quality and management quality in exceptionally optimized level of performance by each and every person to whom a particular task is being given. It is not even a team. Your task is being assigned to 5 different people, and each person are yoked together as a team but work independently. So there is no question of teamwork. There is no question of teamwork telling that I don't know who had done this and who had done that work. Each team member is responsible, accountable for the job that is being assigned. That depends upon your strategy plan. So 1 trillion you put through, and you play like a ODI cricket. You have the target of 2024, and you know the run rate. If it is an optimized level of 5, then you are reaching on a daily basis what you had set yourself for 4 years hence as $1 trillion. When you say on a daily basis, CAGR is being converted into CDGR, and then you work towards the performance and the optimized performance. And that again is governance. Governance is a dynamic function. You can't wait for your balance sheet and P&L being prepared after the month and keep talking about your adverse variance and keep fighting within yourself. You have a target of 1 trillion. You have got the assignment of what is to be done. If you have the 10 bricks every day, I have to go and put it for building the factory. My job is over. Like that, I have got about 13 million people to do that. If one particular team gets an average, say about 4 instead of 5, because what is given in the book, let me tell you, each person optimal performance is 5. There are 5 people, 1 ethical responsibility and 4 the fiscal responsibility. Each person does their job, one's own job. That is 5, 5, 5, 25. One person doesn't do out of the 5, then it becomes 20 or 24. The 24, assuming the one person is not up to the mark and performs only about, instead of 10 bricks, I take only about 8 bricks. Then I have a problem. I get the credit of only for 4 points. So you got 24. 24 divided by 5 is 4, because only integer is being taken. When it is being done, we are talking about 13 million people with about 2.6 million teams being created, and one particular team gets about 4, and the rest of the among 2.6 million teams got 5, 5, 5. Because of this one team, the whole process gets only 4. Get my point? It's a very important aspect of effort per person. One person can change the whole atmosphere, but the intention is to bring him up to the level of 5. So there will be a competition for among the 2.6 million teams. Each team wants to achieve the performance at the optimum level. When it is being done, you have a tremendous potential in terms of enthusiasm, in terms of competition, a healthy competition. You are not going to accuse because of that fellow has not brought this and this fellow has not brought this. That depends upon the stage 5 of the strategy plan. You got to get the right persons and give the right tasks, and the tasks are 1 trillion, and it includes outsiders, includes even third-party assurance consultants for say HACCP, for TKM, for various factors. That is what M stands for, management quality. So everything when it gets merged to a corporate as a whole, to each FPO, so 10,000 FPOs, each FPO is identified. So there is no separate rating for a company, whether corporate or FPO. It is the individual rating that adds up to that of the FPO. When there are 10,000 FPOs collectively, when you see, each one is being added up to total of comprising of 13 million farmers, for example. So this is a concept which same thing would come to the corporate also. The corporate citizen has his or her own rating. If there are 500,000 people in a company, the 500,000 ratings are available, how they perform, and that makes up the rating for the company. If everybody does well, and they have to, with this EPP, you have a performance analysis coming through on a daily basis, governance being the dynamic function, but the linear expansion takes place. That is, from 450 billion to 1 trillion, there is no quantum jump. Everybody, 13 million farmers and other people have to do their job in a methodical manner. That is second law. Second law states matter waiting to happen. That is the one inactivity. The matter has to be moved. The management is very simple because the intangible, which is the effort that we put through, pushing it from one space to the other, is all manageable part. If collectively when we do it, what I am giving is only a platform, only a calculator, how it is being done. Whereas actual this thing has to be done at the ground level. When it is being computed and is being brought about on a daily basis, there will be a tremendous progress that will be coming, and it is possible to achieve. With all the capability of men, I would like you to go through the chapter 2 of my book, Who Are You? And that will give our capability is something beyond imagination. $1 trillion, we can very easily do that in a democratic country. We are not China, that somebody puts a notice that I have to carry instead of 10, I have to carry about 20 bricks every day. No, you have selected me to carry 10, I will do 10. It's a democratic country. We are in India. So the India is capable of taking that to that level of $1 trillion in about 4 years. As I said earlier, could be good. I would like to see these corporate investors, if they are coming, put $100 billion in this. Is going to benefit not only this country, every investment, because the CREAM report is going to make a lot of difference. And EPP is how each person has functioned. As well as that.
This excerpts from Suggestions by CRIM Technology on Draft National Policy to the Ministry of MSMEs. There are about 4 interesting slides. Transition to green economy, IMF World Economic Outlook, data analytics. The first point I would like to take under 3.1, how India to deal with societal changes post COVID-19. I have referred in my episode number 7, consumer subsidy will not stop. Number 2, producer subsidy will stop or will have to stop. transformation of industry is a critical point for takeoff. Number 3, pass on the benefits of downsizing programs in big industries to reduce consumer subsidies. So the societal changes, if you have to go by what it means really, is that the industry has to transform. Before going to the fourth item on factor 3.1, let me present here what I had earlier given in past podcast episode number 7, transition to green economy. There I have given the analogy of a plane. I said in the context of mitigating global warming, I want to emphasize the two-winged planes made up of the society in one side and the industry at the other. Shall we name it as the essence of I 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution? 1. Advanced digital technology on one side, and 2. The societal changes at the other. This is what it says. The government is in the middle, and the society in the other side, one part of the wing, and the industry the other. That is what I emphasized that time. Now let me continue with 3.1, the fourth point. With 110 million workforce, MSMEs become the primary focus of receiving the benefits to reduce their input costs, so that MSMEs become competitive in their pricing, attaining financial stability that is lacking now. Societal changes of 110 million workforce is to be tracked in terms of benefits received by MSMEs. Mind you, MSME is one of the biggest, largest beneficiaries of the society. If they are taken care, and you are going to make a huge difference in what the society is looking at. The fifth point which I made is that the plane will remain on the tarmac unless the big industries undertake downsizing programs and also reduce their fixed costs. AI or robots must create benefits for MSMEs, not add to their burden of costs. Number 6, pricing to MSMEs must be subject to cost audit. India is quite familiar with that. So introduction or reintroduction of cost audit for MSME's supply chain would be very useful and beneficial. In this series of what I had already given to the Ministry of MSME, we are looking at factor number 3, where we indicated about the capability as mentioned in the per capita output by IMF. Then we looked into 3.1, societal changes, which is a very significant area of going forward. MSMEs with 110 million people are looking at the societal changes for India as a whole. We are looking at the opportunities for MSMEs. When 28% of the GDP, currently say about $560 billion, how it could be taken to $1.4 trillion as and when India's GDP comes to 5 trillion. We also indicated that have a set your mark for 2024. It cannot be 5 trillion, may not be able to be achieved by the India as a whole, but 1.4 trillion is what MSMEs have to put their sight on. In that, I am going to the second factor, second area of issue area, In continuing with my IMF World Economic Outlook, Data Analytics, October 2021, there's a very interesting information. Estimated cumulated real revenue for the global production of selected energy transition metals 2021 to 2040 in trillions of 2020 US dollars. I'm sorry, billions of 2020 US dollars. It's a significant aspect of what the opportunities are available for the MSMEs. We had indicated that 4 countries who are constrained by area, very big in economic output, Japan, South Korea, Germany, as well as the United States. They're all looking at for outsourcing and looking toward India's MSMEs. So if you look at the 2024 target of 1.4 trillion, I would very much guide them in terms of getting into these metals. These metals are important as to selected energy transition metals. The critical metals for green technologies, replacing the old ones. Fossil fuels of 70 trillion to 19 trillion on select energy transition by 2040 is going to be very important because the subsidies would be a dual aspect of CARR and CAGR that clean technology recommends. CARR is the reduction rate, such as fossil fuel subsidy, 70 trillion, and CAGR of 13 trillion revenue generation on critical metals for green technologies. So MSMEs shall focus this opportunity. CARR tracked by CDRR or CAGR by CDGR, D being the daily. This is what MSME has to look at. If you look at that, it's a two-way process of reducing what is valueless and constructing what is value. So that is what CRIM technology looks at in terms of incremental value of selecting the selected metals from $4 trillion around now to $13 trillion in 2040 and $70 trillion now in fossil fuels, oil, natural gas and coal. We got to reduce it to $19 trillion. This would be a significant factor in terms of changing the scenario, and the opportunities exist. As I said earlier, is a DIY planet we are living in. MSMEs have to look for these opportunities and go toward increasing their revenue and reducing their costs and dropping what is quietly valueless. Then the societal changes could improve. We got to first get it done by the MSMEs, then only it could be passed on to the society. The next point is transformation. We are looking at the transformation of MSMEs in terms of opportunities. I given the same thing in transition to green economy. IMF World Economic Outlook data analytics being reported in podcast episode number 7. In the transformation, I have indicated, of course, we talked about fossil fuel subsidies. Then change the IMF reporting system. Looking at that October 2021 report, we have data. All the data that we have is all static, ex post facto. I would very much recommend IMF to talk about what the future is and indicate 2024. We are talking about 1.4 trillion MSMEs. That 1.4 trillion, how we are going to reach. Not that just to give IMF reporting system that is going to be 9.5% and extrapolating from what it is today in 2021 and all that. No. So my method of CRIM technology is to fix the CARR and CDRR. We found that in critical metals. Critical metals is $70 trillion and it has to reduce it about $19 trillion by 2040. How are you going to reach? Everywhere, whether it is Saudi Arabia or India or COP26 we talked about in 2030 how the things are being going to be taken into account. 2060, 2070. Each country is putting a mark on 2070 and 2060 and that sort of thing. That is what is needed for reporting system of IFMF to look into. If that is what they have put, what have they put for 2070 and what it is today. So if you look at that CDRR, daily reduction rate, if you put other areas, then reporting system must change. This ex post facto analysis is very primitive. Coming to the next one, policies and practices, which I have indicated. IMF talks of policy accidents, and as I said earlier, is policy and politics. We have to know how to differentiate between policies and what the practices are. That's what CREAM technology provides you with: corporate atomic structure, enabling policies, practices, and people differentiated and made accountable is one advanced technology, I must say, to get going on that. Change your corporate structure to corporate atomic structure. What you are having at the moment is a flat structure. Changed. Assess, measure what the policies that we have put through, what the policies are intended to do, and how it is being tracked. So policy accidents is a very important aspect which we are not able to do that with the current structure. Change so that everything is made accountable. And practices how net zero integrates each company with the energy policy of reduction in carbon footprint. CAGR and CARR, the reduction rate, brought to CDGR and CDRR daily. Then you have the EU policy I've indicated. Greenhouse emissions reductions by 2030 would be around 45% lower compared to 1990 levels when excluding land use emissions and absorptions. That's what EU policy says. Create physical infrastructure and linkages backward and forward, amenable to MSMEs. That's what we indicated. We got to do that.